Good morning. As foggy as today is, we're going to wake up with hymn 298, Wake Now My Senses. Hymn 298. Good morning to all who join us this morning here in our sanctuary and now and forever on YouTube. We welcome you. I'm Kay Azar, your worship associate, one of many, to help lead you through the service this morning. Sharon Whitehill, while another of the worship associates this morning will be presenting the message and has been integral in shaping the service around that message. I'd like to thank all who have come this morning. Every week we hear there are more people in the sanctuary and it looks awesome. If you are here for the first time or have just returned, we welcome you into this sacred space. We would also like to know who you are, so if you are willing, please stand or just wave your arm and tell us your name, and if you're coming for the first time, perhaps where you're from. These snowbirds, I know there's snow. Hi.
I'm Susan Stewart. I've been here 2 or 3 times, and I live in Englewood.
Welcome, Susan. It's good to have you here this morning.
I'm Chris. I was here about 6-7 years ago. I moved back up north, but I've come down to spend December with my mother.
Welcome back, Chris. Good to see you. I'd also like to thank all the people who help with the service every week, in particular the tech team that includes Tom, Corey, and Doug, the musicians, Ryan, and the choir. We thank you all. Without everybody, there would be no service. We gather together in this space to honor and understand our lives. We gather together, our familiar words to many of us. We, called here not by name, not by special invitation, but we who are here, who, walking by the door, come in, who come anonymously, burdened and borne by our visions, yearnings, despairs, and solitudes. Gather, called here not by law, not by other compulsion, but by inward necessity do we come, alone or with others, casual yet intent, drawing in, drawing towards, drawing near. Together. This is the hardest, the most difficult thing, for within and without this building and this room, we irk, frustrate, and anger each other at least as often as we lend or give support. Together is a place. Together is a way. Together is a focus, an acknowledgement that we who gather are seekers and are equal in our seeking, by Libby Stoddard. Sometimes words are not necessary, and Ryan this morning gives us the gift of a musical prelude. Thank you, Ryan. Now for our chalice lighting. We come together without creed. In this free church, we come together without creed, focusing instead on the core values of justice, equity, and compassion, of our mutual acceptance of our diverse ways of being as we seek to connect more fully with the unfolding truths of life and of our world. We come together in shared conviction that all people deserve a voice in matters that concern them, that is up to each of us to protect the rights of all, particularly those who, for whatever reason, have long been held in silence. We come together in the stubborn belief that community is possible and peace is more than a dream. We commit together to affirm in our actions, as well as our words, the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We come together in awareness of our interdependence with all humanity and with the wider web of existence, for that too is part of what is meant by we. In this free church, we come together without creed, believing that the way we live in the world bears testament to the value of our beliefs. We light this chalice as a beacon of hope for those who have gathered here this day, for all who have ever walked through our doors, for those who may yet find this spiritual home, and for those whose paths will never come our way. For all this and for all those things we dare to hope and dream, we kindle our chalice flame this day. Please read the affirmation as printed in the order of service. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Sharon has opening words.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. The opening words this morning are from Marcus Zuzak, who is the author of The Book Thief. The young man wandered around for quite some time, thinking, planning, and figuring out exactly how to make the world his. Then one day, out of nowhere, it struck him. The perfect plan. He'd seen a mother walking with her child. At one point, she admonished the small boy, until finally he began to cry. But within a few minutes, she spoke softly to him, after which he was soothed and even smiled. The young man rushed up to the woman and embraced her. "Words," he grinned. "What?" But there was no reply. He was already gone. Yes, the Führer decided he would rule the world with words. It's time for our second hymn this morning, and in preparation for my message to come later, I ask you to pay special attention in this hymn to the last words of the verses. We're going to sing 3 verses, 1, 2, and 4. But the last words of these verses are very similar. The hymn is number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. And the key word that I want you to look for is a seemingly innocent little one, only 2 letters, the word An. What makes it special in the context of this refrain is this attitude of humility. Not the answer, but an answer. So if you would please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 354 in the gray hymnal.
We need to feel
get to do some of the work today, too. Our reading, number 594 in the back of the gray hymnal, are the principles and purposes for all of us from the UUA. I'll start, and you can follow in the italics. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
We believe that each and every person is important.
We affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations.
We believe that all people should be treated fairly.
We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth.
We believe that our churches are places where all people are accepted and where we can meet and learn together.
We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning.
We believe that each person must be free to search for what is true and right in life.
We affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process.
We believe that all people should have a voice and a vote about the things which concern them.
We affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
We believe that we should work for a peaceful, fair, and free world.
We affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
We believe that we should care for our heart-minded earth.
Each week, we take time to acknowledge the joys and sorrows and concerns that we bring with us. I'll read this week's entries in the Book of Life. And this book is available to all before the service or via email at bookoflife@uufcc.org before 6 p.m. the Saturday prior to the service, or in the book on the morning of the service. The book usually lives on the table to the right of the entry. This is what the book looks like. So I know that there is one entry. Today, my family will celebrate my mother's 99th birthday, Trudy Gerhardt. Yay! Awesome. We also acknowledge that many have joys and sorrows they wish to acknowledge by dropping a stone into the water of the community bowl. These joys and sorrows may be given life by speaking them at the microphone or by holding them in your heart. So if you wish to drop a stone in the water, please come forward. And I think I have to turn the mic on.
I was scheduled for back surgery last Wednesday, and they were going to put some needles in my back with an electronic device hooked to it, and that was going to eliminate my back pain. And halfway through the procedure, they aborted and quit the procedure. And what happened is that the doctor couldn't get the needles in my spine because of stenosis. I commend that doctor for having the courage to abort that procedure. I commend that young man very much, because he, instead of taking a chance on damaging a nerve, which could paralyze me, he had the courage to stop. I am grateful. And on Tuesday, I'm going to celebrate 40 years of being sober.
So it was a busy week for us this week. Unfortunately for Ryan's dad, Rod, when they were on their vacation to Savannah, he damaged his Achilles tendon somehow. And so he is in a walking boot, which is not good when you have Parkinson's disease and I'm a little worried we're going to have a fall from the boot and the thing that goes on the bottom of the regular shoe. My mom did not tell us that she was having so many car problems. She just made a appointment at the VW dealer, and $3,800 later, her car is back on the road and doing fine. And the thankful part of that is that the VW dealer is not sure how it didn't blow up. So we had to talk about, next time ask us if you have an engine light on instead of waiting. And then for my final is a huge joy. We've lived in Highland Shores in Ellington now for almost 4 years, and we know a few of the neighbors. During the pandemic, people really weren't socializing very much, understandably. But we, on a spur of the moment, got invited to a Christmas travel around, which we had one when we lived in Toledo, some neighbors put on, and we had one last night and went to about 6 or 7 houses and met all kinds of families and children and had a really great time, different wine and drinks and cocktails and appetizers, and they really just did a beautiful job. And next year we'll be hosting, one of the hosts on the tour, and I'm just really grateful to see that we accidentally picked such a wonderful neighborhood to move into.
Carolyn Kay again with her weekly promotion of the artist Pink and no more book banning and acceptance of all. Plus, last Sunday I announced that my bike was stolen from my carport overnight. A number of people here offered me a bike. But the Punta Gorda Police Department came and brought me a new bike and a new helmet on Tuesday. Did you ever hear? Did you ever? I mean, it's like you do this for little kids, not for elderly 77-year-old women. But thank you.
I have a joy this morning. I walked in this morning and this fellowship was decorated like unbelievably. And whomever and everybody that did that, I thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure, but wow, this is so cool. Anyhow, oh, and I'm Jackie. Everybody knows who I am.
I am Ron, and I have so much thanks for the mother of my son, Micah, who cares for him impeccably day after day. And he's now 39 years old and will be 40 this spring. And I'm also very thankful for the 35 years that they live in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm allowed to live down here without that responsibility, except every morning I talk to him on the phone, and it is really just a joyful event. He has severe disabilities, and I made a film about him, which is showing at the Charlotte Public Library this coming Thursday night at 6 p.m. I think it's in Punta Gorda. The library itself got damaged, but the Charlotte Public Library. And there'll be a second part of the movie shown a week from Thursday. So 2 Thursday nights. I want everyone to come who is at all concerned about the state of art of parenting someone with severe needs, and the movie's about the community that has given my son a quality life the Boulder community and the Palm Beach community for several of his years. And he's a really happy guy with a quality life. So I hope you will all come. It's free.
I'm Shelley. I could put in a number of stones, but I wanted to recognize the loss of some women leaders this week, and all of the paths that they created for us, women through the last decades or so. The first one, of course, is the person who lived her faith, and that's Rosalind Carter, President Carter's wife. And can you believe they were married for 77 years? Absolutely amazing. The second one is Sandra Day O'Connor, the very first female Supreme Court justice. And she paved the way for, obviously, more. And in spite of what we think, it was Ronald Reagan who got her nominated, regardless of what we think of him, got her nominated on the Supreme Court. So that he was a very forward-thinking president in that direction. Now, I asked Lori next to me who that third female was, and for the life of me, I can't remember. Any of you guys know? Maybe I've just lost my mind. The astronaut, yes. Yes, and her name was Kristen. Yeah, the one was died in the Challenger, the explosion in the Challenger, but she was one of the first female scientists in NASA, and one of the first females to take a flight on the space shuttle.
And I'd like to interject too that when she was finished with that, she went on to become very active in saving the world, saving the earth.
Her name was Mary Cleave. Yes.
Mary Cleave, right. So I'm not going to dilute this with just the way I feel about the leading women that have changed my life compared to what my mother grew up, the environment my mother grew up in. We did lose a couple of guys, but I'm not going to say their name this week. I want to focus on the females. So there you go.
I'm picking a big rock. Jeez, please. This is for Herb. He's okay. I'm not okay. He's suffering with a back problem, and I miss him. So that big one's for Herb. And Sharon. I'm an animal lover. Sharon's cat is under the weather. This is for your cat, Sharon. I hope he improves.
Thank you.
And I have a stone for my husband who has just not been able to get over something ugly. And I have one last stone for all those joys and concerns that remain unspoken and in our hearts. Sharon Whitehill is a longtime member of this congregation and a frequent contributor to our services. She has a way with words, and today talks about language as a power tool. Sharon?
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Janet. Language is something so common and so essential to us that we forget how mysterious it really is sometimes. I don't mean the mystery of achieving flawless grammar or beauty in your personal writing. I don't mean the mystery of why people let demagogues convince them with sound bites. I'm thinking of the mystery of learning a language at all. How you and I, all of us, managed to learn our own language when we were little more than babies. Think of how carefully you had to listen to the strange sounds that people around you were making until you began to recognize those sounds as communication. At first, you had no idea that people or things had names they were called by. But little by little, you realized that these sounds not only named things you could see, but also things you couldn't see, like feelings and qualities. You also had to learn the rhythm and cadence of speech. You had to learn a certain word order of sentences. You had to learn how questions were different from statements. You had to learn that there were words that described experiences you had never had, or at least not yet. At the same time as all of this, you had to learn to reproduce all of those sounds yourself with throat movements and lip movements and cheek movements. But you did it. We all did it within the first 2 years of our lives. It's remarkable when you think about it. Mysterious, really, and even because language is the entire basis, not only for how we speak, but for how we think and for how we get along with others, how we get anything done. It's this all-encompassing power of language that is both a mystery and the source of its danger. Kind of like riding a horse or wading into the ocean. You can revel in it, you can luxuriate in it, but you also have to respect its power to harm you. Why else do you suppose invaders of countries try to stamp out the language of the people they conquer? Think of the shameful network of Indian schools where children were beaten for speaking their native language. Shameful especially because 4/5 of those schools were funded by our own government. Why the rush to censor books and other forms of linguistic expression? We're seeing that firsthand today, the current book purges in libraries and schools. This is typical authoritarian behavior. Autocrats of all sorts are keen to censor any language that might undermine their control. Again, starting with the young minds of children. Because, and this is my point, language is far from neutral. It's not merely a practical means of communication either. It's a tool. It's a powerful tool, used like any tool, either for good or for ill. A power tool, if you will, call it a verbal sander or drill or grinder, used to shape your thinking. We know that. That part of it is not a mystery. But we liberal thinkers, have a power tool of our own, and that is to recognize the signs of manipulation through language and to counteract them with our own clear speech. words that are clear and direct. These are your friends. It all has to start with being alert to the way language works. The far right has long since mastered this skill. And part of that mastery is what I think of as linguistic robbery. For example, remember the outraged reaction to the slogan Black Lives Matter? Not that long ago. All lives matter. How dare they? People raved and objected. And not much time passed when those same people who had denied the value of Black Lives Matter as a slogan took it and used it in their own way for their own purposes. I've seen a blue, red, and green Lives Matter bumper sticker in support of police, firefighters, and the military. For a long time, there was a big Blue Lives Matter sign in Punta Gorda. Maybe some of you remember seeing it. It was between Marion and Olympia on the right side of the road driving south. Another trick of linguistic robbers is to take a good, solid, meaningful word and twist it into a weapon against anyone who opposes them. The word intellectual, for instance, as in the phrase intellectual elites, to suggest that being well-educated and smart is identical to being ruthlessly privileged and selfish. Or the word liberal. Today we're the libs, pronounced with a sneer. But that mockery goes back to the 1970s, being a liber if you supported the women's movement. What's ironic about that is that the Republican Party used the word positively, the word liberal. For years they used it that way, up until Ronald Reagan and his second term, after which it became an insult. Other meaningful words have been twisted into slurs. What about the word diversity and its companion words, equity and inclusion, DEI? Disparaging the whole concept has succeeded so well that by 2019, it wasn't only conservative white men who shunned that terminology, but people like Ava DuVernay, the director of Selma, Shonda Rhimes, the producer, screenwriter, even Oprah, or so I've read. How's that for the power to control people with words? Still, another trick is to coin a misleading label or phrase. Think of how pro-life has caught on, how cleverly it tricks you, if you're on the opposite side of the issue, into being someone supposedly who is against life. That's an either-or trap. Either you are pro-life or you're anti-life. The trick to that. Well, two can play the same game, and pro-choice is an excellent counter coinage. But still, notice how we were linguistically manipulated into coming up with that coinage, with that label of our own. Of course, politics is a prime playground for language robbery. No surprise, but what about religion? Think of what evangelical Christians have done to the word Jesus. There's a cultural critic named Bruce Bauer who wrote a book called Stealing Jesus: How Fundamentalism Betrays Christianity. I think that title says it all. Around the time it was published in 1977, I was reading lots of books on the historical Jesus and the history of Christianity. And I remember being so worried when I was on a plane or sitting in the dentist's office with my book with the word Jesus in the title. I was so afraid that I would be identified as one of those evangelicals that I actually used to cover the word on the cover of my book so that people couldn't read it over my shoulder. Embarrassed. So is there a way to combat these skewed meanings, sly implications, mockeries of words that we hold dear? I don't know about you, but like the black celebrities I cited a moment ago, I've actually found myself avoiding the use of some of them. So I think that Mary Jane's musings in the weekly notes this past September, you may or may not recall, but they struck me. She wrote this: I claim woke as a compliment, as I do liberal. Studies show that Mary Jane's self-labeling in that way, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, foils the power of words to stigmatize and reframes that word as self-respect. I claim woke as a compliment, as I do liberal. We can and should do this as individuals, of course, but it's the power of the group that really takes it back to its positive meaning and brings about a change of perspective. Think of the Black is Beautiful phenomenon. That phrase grew out of a fashion show in Harlem in 1962. It grew into a huge social movement, as we know, that rejected the associations of the word black with darkness and evil. Black is beautiful. Let's do that with our own good words. Let's claim them again as our own. Or more accurately, let's reclaim them: liberal, woke, intellectual, Black Lives Matter, even Jesus, one of our own UU sages. Let's take them back to their original meaning and use them with pride. Another way to counteract the effects of right-wing misdirection or direct, downright lies is what linguist George Lakoff calls the truth sandwich. Lakoff has written about how effectively Donald Trump uses the language. Now that really shocked me when I read that. To me, his utterances are gibberish. The man never finishes a sentence. They're all over the place, and he repeats everything again and again. But that is the key. He is repeating his most controversial insults and claims, and Lakoff claims that that's why his speech works so well. He offers advice, Lakoff does, on how we can thwart the effect of this kind of repetition. And here's the example he uses for a truth sandwich. Suppose someone has read or heard that drinking bleach can cure COVID-19. What not to do? And this is counterintuitive because our impulse is to deny that. What not to do then is to call the statement false. Don't say it's not true that drinking bleach can cure COVID-19 because you've restated the lie in doing that. That not only reinforces it by repetition, it also leaves it in the same incorrect frame. So instead, you reframe it in a truth sandwich. First, always start with the truth. Drinking bleach for any reason at all can kill you. That's a true statement. The first frame always gets the advantage. Second, indicate the lie but use different words. Again, don't repeat it in the way that it was presented. You say something like, bleach disinfects surfaces, it does not cure illness. Avoid using that specific language of the misstatement. You don't want to repeat and reinforce it. And third, you return to the truth. Never drink bleach. It will burn up your insides. Always repeat the truth statement more often than the lie. Lakoff calls this a truth sandwich because the bologna is in the middle. It's a strategy to keep in mind when you hear one of those soundbite statements from someone. Just as important, I think, is our own way of expressing things. Euphemisms, for example. Euphemisms exist to conceal what's true, but what feels too harsh to state bluntly. Take the examples of collateral damage for killing innocent civilians, or pacification for forcing an outside government on a previously autonomous group. And this last one was new to me. Sunshine unit for a power plant that's leaking radiation. Bill Moyers wrote in 2016 with amazement that the no less influential newspaper than the New York Times had finally come out and called Donald Trump a liar. Blunt truth may be a blunt instrument, but it is powerful. One of my own pet peeves, and my friends know this, is hearing euphemisms for the word dead. I admit I flinch at hearing passed on or passed away, and I know there are those of you who prefer it. It seems to soften the harsh reality of death, or at least it does so verbally. I hope to make you smile, though, at my next example for the euphemisms for the word dead. It's Monty Python's Dead Parrot skit, if you know that. A man comes into a pet shop to return a dead parrot, and the proprietor says, that parrot is not dead, it's just resting. And the customer, they exchange these words for a while, and finally the customer, in great frustration, yells at him, it's not resting. And then he launches into every euphemism he can think of for dead. He says, this parrot has passed on. It is no more. It has ceased to be. It's gone to meet its maker. It's resting in peace. It's pushing up the daisies. It's kicked the bucket, shuffled off its mortal coil, rung down the curtain. It's joined the bleeding choir invisible. This is an ex-parrot. Not everyone loves Monty Python, but I do. And I rest my case. Euphemisms and idioms lead me to another example of how words are used to obfuscate, to conceal meaning and confuse the listener or the reader. Why do politicians' answers to direct questions seem so empty and vague? Because that politician is hiding the truth rather than expressing it. There's a whole industry devoted to this kind of speech. Think tanks, legislators, and lobbyists, and PR firms hired to write, for example, misleading ballot measures. Do you ever face a ballot measure and not know how to answer yes or no because of the way it's worded? George Orwell, of course, the author of 1984, argued that the great enemy of clear language is insincerity. When there's a gap between one's real and one's declared aims, one turns by habit to long words and exhausted idioms. You know them all. Electoral fraud, game change, thrown under the bus. And our side, too, uses them. Democracy is at a crossroad. Most important election of a lifetime. Orwell goes on, one often has the curious feeling that one is not watching a live human being, but some kind of dummy who utters these phrases mindlessly, like the responses in church. I hope your responses were not mindless. We can learn to recognize this in others, but how to combat them in our own vocabulary, our own speech. There's a huge tendency we all have to fall back on these easy phrases. One way to combat that is to understand the difference between Anglo-Saxon words and Latinate words. I'll give you a very brief little lesson on that. Anglo-Saxon, also known as Old English, it's the oldest form of our language. It was spoken between the 5th and 12th centuries by tribes from what is now Germany and Denmark. Old English developed into Middle English, the language of Chaucer, and then early modern English, which is the language of Shakespeare. And now, of course, we have modern English. Here's the point. Anglo-Saxon words, the words that come from Old English, are short, direct, and down to earth. Latinate words are multisyllabic and cerebral. Listen to this list of synonyms, one beginning with the Latinate word and the synonym in Anglo-Saxon. Perspire for sweat, expectorate for spit, deceased for dead, intestine for gut, decompose for rot, and several others not to be uttered in church. Now, of course, bodily functions have their own Latinate medical terms versus their blunt Anglo-Saxon equivalents, also known as four-letter words. I'm not saying that a Saxon word is always preferable to a Latinate word. Of course not, especially in polite society. And Lord knows I use enough Latinate words. I love big words. Sometimes they're the only one that really fits what I want to say. But my message is, if you don't want to sound like a doctor, with my apologies to Dr. Mike and Dr. Allen, if you don't want to sound like a doctor or an administrator or an English professor or a politician, say what you mean with the fewest and shortest words possible. Here's an easy way to remember Anglo-Saxon words, that they're the source of most, if not all, of our swear words. I thought you'd like that. Science tells us, by the way, that swearing is good for us. So next time you burn yourself or spill or drop something or hit your thumb with a hammer and let loose a stream of choice words, be reassured that it's a healthy reaction. It quickens your heart rate, releases adrenaline, thus reinforcing your defenses, and it actually diminishes physical pain to swear. Or so it's at least a tolerance of pain. Try it sometime. I find this fascinating, the difference between profane swear words and obscene swear words. Put it simply, profane words mock what is sacred. Obscene words mock bodily functions. Interestingly enough, what's considered forbidden, obscene or profane, changes over time. In the Middle Ages, the most terrible words insulted what was considered most holy. Middle Ages being a highly religious period. Bloody, for instance. It was a contraction, believed to be a contraction for by Our Lady, Virgin Mary. And so if you called somebody a bloody fool, you were taking the name of a divinity in vain. And it was a terrible no longer the case. That word is, I think I quoted it in the Monty Python quote. By the 18th century, the most shocking words had changed to scatological ones. Now there's a wonderful Latinate word for you. Scatological. It simply means words that refer to bodily functions. And those are the ones today, still, that are the most objectionable to most people. Even though their overuse in recent decades may have oversensitized us a bit. Some of you may remember when the satirist Lenny Bruce was arrested for using a certain 9 words in his routine. I don't know what they were, and if I did, I wouldn't say them here, but you can imagine. And a few years later, George Carlin, whom my husband Jim loved, gave his now famous monologue entitled 7 Words You Can Never Say on Television. I was intrigued to notice this. What seemed so offensive to censors at Carlin's monologue, serious people like doctors were free to use the medical terms for those functions if they used the Latinate term, even on daytime TV. They could say, I can't say it, but anyway. What was so shocking and what made the satire of George Carlin so powerful was the impact of using the Anglo-Saxon words, the 4-letter equivalents for the bodily function medical words. So, this is where your lesson on Anglo-Saxon versus Latinate words ends, but in short, it is good to say what you mean in the fewest and shortest possible way. I have a bit here I'm going to cut out because of time, and move on to my conclusion, summing it all up. I want us all to be freshly aware of the ways language, which is our great human gift, and my own greatest pleasure. Let's be aware of how it can be turned and used against us. How our most valuable words can be twisted into negative weapons. Our thinking and our feelings can be muddied by euphemisms and Latinate words. Even our well-meant attempts to be respectful of others, sometimes getting us snarled up in what seem to be silly extremes. That was in a section that I had to skip. Let's counter that falsehood with a big George Lakoff truth sandwich. And let's reclaim the language that's valuable to us, the way Black is Beautiful did. Overall, let's remember what Orwell said. The great enemy of clear language is insincerity. And conversely, the great enemy of insincerity is clear language, both our own and from others. I do believe that working on that, how we understand language use, and how we keep it from working against us, and how we make it work for us instead, is of great importance. Thank you.
We have hymn number 368. I'm going to just suggest you sit down for this. I believe John Lee is going to be our helper this morning. There are additions and changes to the words that are in your hymnal, and John will show you what they are.
This takes a very high level of intelligence.
So,
What?
Write me in for the job.
hymn 368, Now Let Us Sing, with variations.
Sing, sing, sing. up your voice, be not afraid. Sing the power of the words within your mercy. Sing, now let's sing. Sing up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the words we read. Now let us sing. Sing, now let us sing. Sing up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the words we hear. Now let us sing. Sing, now let us sing. Sing up your voice, be not afraid. Sing to the power of the words we speak.
Thank you, Sharon. We now have the offertory, and since we're running a little late, I'm just going to say Ryan's going to play something while the ushers come down to collect the offering, and leave it at that. Thank you all. And I'm going to go through some of the announcements quickly. The Caring and Hospitality Committee is seeking people to join them. We need you, Debbie Conrad says. They will be meeting at 9:30 going forward, and talk to Debbie back there for more information. We are also asking that the last person out of the back parking lot to put up the chain. If you don't know the combination, call or text Mary Jane or Tom Dooley. So try not to be the last one out of the back parking lot. Is that message? The Art Committee is proud to announce our newest exhibit, Art with a Meaning. It's fabulous over here if you haven't seen it. Popular local artists Bev Yankowit and Joanne Stramara. Poems are by Bev's daughter, and Joanne has stories behind her paintings. Please check it out and come to a reception for the artists this Friday at 4. For questions, ask Tom or Trudy. Lunch Bunch meets today at Healthy Fa. The petitions are on, we can get choice on the next Florida ballot, but we must act fast. The petitions are on a table next to the doors of the sanctuary from the social hall side. Instructions are posted. For additional information, talk to Myrna or Mary Lou. Uh, Hopefully you all know this, but Christmas Eve is a Sunday. We are not having a regular morning service that day. The UUFCC musicians will be hosting an informal gathering for singing at the fellowship at 10:30. And in the evening, we'll gather for holiday music at 5:30. If you prefer not to drive at night, carpooling is available. We need help next week to decorate our tree. The purpose of there will be stars, circles, and pens to write your to memorialize people that we are remembering and who are gone. We have continued with our hopes and dreams. Next week, that's it. Oh, Ted has one announcement. John Lee has a second announcement.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm speaking today because we have received a challenge. The challenge is, before the epidemic, every Christmas we asked the public school system to provide us with a homeless family or a family that is in desperate conditions that we might help. This year, we decided to return to that activity. So we approached the public school, and they have given us a challenge. They have 3 families who have joined together with 8 children, and presumably at least 3 adults, maybe more, as the ones we are to help. Now, how do we do it? Can we do it? Before it was always like one person with a couple kids or something of that nature. Now this is a big group. We could simply collect the money, send it to them, let them figure out what to do with it. Well, alternatively, we could say we can't handle that bigger group. Or the third, we can handle it. But that takes manpower and woman power. We need to work together. In the old days, Herb Levin would always go to the recipients, get to know them, find out what their needs and problems are, and try to be helpful to them, in addition to just handing out money, sometimes to help them achieve their goals by going along with them. I remember a case. A man needed to get his teeth done for years, was always afraid, so Herb went with him. Sometimes it's been a couple of women from the congregation who have done that activity. With 8 kids and 3 adults or more, 1 person or 2 people I don't think can handle that. Maybe you can handle it, but I can't handle that. So therefore, there's the challenge. And please meet with me on the porch after you grab your coffee and cake, and let's come to a decision. We just send the money and let them figure it out. We say we can't handle a group that big, or if we're going to handle it, how do we do it in the best way possible? Thank you.
Anybody who's been here for a while knows our tradition every Christmas of the reverse Advent bags. Oh. We fill bags with hygiene products. They're listed here. You don't have to fill a whole bag. You don't have to do like it says on here and put an item in every day. Just bring a bag with whatever's in it. Put it under the tree between now and December 31st. CHAPS has to buy these products for the hygiene pantry. And the more we can give, the end of the year financial stability of CHAPS will be better. Again, these bags will be out in the lobby. There are some bags without numbers, without papers on them, so just take a picture of the one with the paper so you know what to get. Shampoo, I don't personally use it, but I know it's always very in need. One other thing with CHAPS, we need volunteers. If you want to volunteer, I have non-disclosure forms. If you want to see me after the service and fill one out, that way CHAPS has your phone number and email. And but we all sign, anybody who deals with CHAPS on a daily basis has to sign a non-disclosure because it deals with patients who have HIV/AIDS. If you have any questions, I'll be out there eating cake.
See, we can't speak quickly. We worship not to cease. It can echo in our lives, in our words, in our deeds, in our moods, in our dreams. Carry worship with you wherever you go. Be a blessing in your going out and your coming in. And as Alan comes forward to extinguish the chalice, let's read together. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives until we are together again. Peace. Thank you all.
Never mind.
Okay.
No, never mind. No.
Wait a minute. No.
We've dismissed them all. We've extinguished the chalice. It's okay in the time.
Yeah.